Hi guys, good afternoon. It's Steve here today, and Ollie on the live chat. We're going to be running through the setup of mailers with you today, setting them up and actually using the mailers. It'll be a brief session because the mailers bit's quite straightforward to set up. But what we're going to do is first of all explain the mailers as they are in Prima. How do you get them into the system? What's going on in terms of the codes, and then on the back of that, setting it against the customers and using the mailers. Okay, so logged into Prima now. The purpose of mailers from a Prima point of view is, I suppose, net priced short catalogue, if you like, of items that are based, or a subset of items that are based in your full publication, such as Vow or Spices or Antalis or whichever full publication you use. They can also be a specific subset that's been given to you as part of a dealer group promotion. So you might see different named mailers dependent on your dealer group, so you'll have those imported. Those particular mailers and the ones that come directly from Vow and Spices, Antalis, etc., they will be part of your PDC catalog import process. So when the nominated person at your business is importing the catalogs that you receive from Prima, those particular mailers will be included, and they're just imported in the same way as a catalogue and drop into the mailers area of Prima. So they're kind of system mailers, and official ones, if you like, from the suppliers and the dealer groups. On the back of that, you then have the kind of user generated ones. So from within Prima, the user's got the ability to look at what's in the publications and build your own set of mailers with pricing on as is right for the nature of the products or the customers that you're going to assign it to. Okay, so in the first instance, you guys would receive, like say, a mailer file from our data team that would be dropped into the imports folder, and it would end up in, if I go into the mailers area over on the side here, it would end up. Now I've got a few, as you'll see in here, I've got a few based on certain dealer group mailers here, official ones, for example, office friendly ones here. What happens with the mailer when you receive it? It has a start and an expiry date. Some of them are yearly, some of them are quarterly, some of them are monthly, depending on the promotions. And those ones will just drop straight into the system once the file's been imported. Okay, so opening one of those up, it would be the case that you would just see the items within when you run a search. Yeah. So it'll come with some default pricing. Some of the mailers will come with bits of information, and some you guys will have to populate yourselves. So we'll come on to that bit in a second in terms of the code. But if I just jump back to the list, what we've got in the list also is these ones. For example, test mailer, manually created mailer, and they're ones where a user has essentially gone in and generated a new mailer, and you access them in the same way once they've been generated, and we'll also come on to show you how to add the lines to those mailers. So that one's got no items in, so we check test mailer as an example, and then we'll see what's in here. So it's a subset of the catalog data in here, something that's been generated manually. Okay, so like coming back to these official ones, if you like, this office friendly one, it would come with a start date and an expiry date, and that determines whether that pricing can be applicable for those products. So you would have a quarter or a yearly mailer. The expiry date is when that dealer group or that particular supplier is saying that that pricing should expire. You can change it manually by highlighting the relevant mailer and updating the values at the bottom here and saving, and then that would make that pricing live. But if you've got any of these mailers assigned to a customer account, the pricing won't be accessible unless it's in date. Okay, so you'd have the mailers into the system, and then on the back of that you would then apply it to relevant customer accounts. So I'm going to come back to in terms of updating the pricing and stuff, but in the quickest instance, to get this stuff onto customers' accounts, it's really done in the company area. So there's two ways you can do it. If it's for an individual account, then you can do it. I'll show you how to get there via the company record. So if I find an account, just load this customer account. And then within the customer account, in your product or pricing tab, this option here of add publication, this is where you would come to add the mailer from the list. So you can choose a mailer and then add it to the account. The markers available on internet is not applicable for mailers, so you don't need to worry about that. If the mailer exists in this box and you use our web store as an example, if it's pulled through based on the pricing hierarchy and this mailer's price wins, it will still pull it through regardless of that being ticked. So don't worry about that. It's just for the purposes of pricing. So you can add the mailer and then you can just add what's relevant manually to this customer account. Okay. In terms of what's happening with the prices when you're adding it to the account, we will come on to there's a couple of options that you can do to either determine that a particular price wins, or you can essentially let the system pick from the cheapest of the mailers that's listed. Okay, so if I just jump back to setting that against the customer individually is pretty straightforward, but then what you've also got that you may want to do is your company grid manager. So the company grid manager just allows you to update multiple records en masse. And you can say, right, well, all my customers, I'm going to search for my customer base and I want to add a particular publication. So I've got another test and I can add. As you'll see here, you can also remove. So if it's a mailer that has expired and you don't want it to be on that customer's account anymore, you've also got the option to remove it. So you can apply en masse. So it might be a particular rep's got a mailer that's relevant to their customers, so they might want to add it to their customers based on the search criteria. And then you just apply, and that would update all those 143 records in one go. Okay. What happens with the official mailers? So we come back to those kind of VOW or Spices, or as we've got here, office friendly ones. What happens is if you have a quarterly mailer like this one, the general process is the next mailer would have the same name, if you like. So what you have a process of importing one and it overwrites the next. So if you have a Q3 mailer, generally the process would be when you import the data file, it would overwrite from Q3 to Q4, and you would just have the latest mailer in the system. Okay, so having the mailers in the system is straightforward in terms of the import. Generating your own mailers to sell is a little bit in an area away from here, just to go and fetch the items. So if in the first instance you want to create a new mailer, you've got this option at the bottom here, add new, and you give it a name. So I want to call it new mailer Q1 2017. I'll give it a start date of today and an expiry date of end of Feb, and I can save that. And then I would have in my list, I'd have a new mailer in the list in here. So once this new mailer exists in the list, then it's available for you to put items into it. So the easiest way I would say to put items into a new mailer is to use in publications your publications grid manager. And what you can do is you can then go searching in the existing catalogues. So you can say, right, okay, from my Spicer standard catalogue, I want to find, it might be a mailer to do with adhesives that you're doing a promotion on. So for example, I'm going to take my adhesives, and it might be adhesives, and then I'll search for those items. So I've got 28 items, and if I go to my change tab, I can add them to a specific mailer. So that mailer that I've generated, the Q1 mailer, I can then apply. Okay, so very quickly I can build into my Q1 mailer products based on my search criteria that's relevant to what my selling promotion is. Okay, and this mailer can then be assigned to customers in the way I've just shown you. So via the company individually or via the company grid manager, you can apply that to relevant accounts. In terms of the pricing on the mailer, what will happen is when you bring the items through, they will come through with the prices as per the selling price on the catalogue. Okay, there's a couple of options you've got to change them depending on the number of items that you've got in the mailer. You can either go into the items individually and update the net price, save. Okay, and as you can see there, I've got some notifications. So if people are going in and changing the pricing, then you'll have that. You've got links back to the product record, you've got links back to your catalogue items and equivalents in here as well. So I can change the prices manually. I can also use the option if I click on this pink bar here, I've got this option to export the mailer. Now, customers would tend to use this option if it's the case that you've got lots of items to manage the pricing on, in which case you can export the mailer, update the pricing. So if I just show you now, it'll just tell you that it's going to do an export of this mailer. And if I save, it will open an Excel file with the mailer detail on. So the reason people would use this is because you've got access then to cost prices, and you can do some, I suppose, formulas in here if you wanted to, and to have a look at what your new price might look like. Essentially, any changes that you make, what needs to happen is these three columns with a star on are the only columns that matter once you re-import the file. So what would happen is you'd look at the data, work on the information that you've got, put your new pricing into this column here, and then delete everything else in here. Save that as a CSV file and drop it back into the imports folder where you would do your where you would import your normal catalogues, and then your mailer will be updated with your new pricing on. What we've introduced, so that's our way of doing it if you've got a lot of items in the file. What we've introduced in the last couple of versions, I can't remember exactly which one it was, but what we've introduced in the last couple of versions is you have the option. So just close that form. You have the option now to use this mailer grid manager. So, for example, if you pick a selection of items like we've done here, and you say, right, okay, well, I can do a 20% decrease on the selling price of those as a net price for one of my promotions. I can go into the mailer grid manager and I can find the mailers that I have in the list. So my new mailer Q1, and I can run a search, bring back my 28 items. In the change tab, I've then got an option to update my selling price. So it's pulled that price through based on the retail price of the catalogue, or your default sell price, and then I can, if I wanted to, I could increase by an amount or a percentage. So this mailer grid manager will allow you to do, I suppose, a basic level of amendment to the price. You'll see below there's an option here to add items to this mailer. What we have on certain customer sites is they will have the same set of items at different tiers of pricing. So when they've created a new manual mailer, added the items from the catalogue like we did earlier, they can come into this grid manager, having created a second one, which is less 20% or whatever it is, and then add items to that particular mailer from this one. So you end up copying items from one mailer to another, so you get the same subset of products, but just you've potentially adjusted the price point each time on those mailers, and you would apply that mailer to the different customer accounts based on potentially their spend with you or your projected spend that they were going to make with you. Yeah. Okay. So you've got the option there to essentially copy items from one. One thing that you've got with mailers, and I suppose a function of how they work, is to do with mailer codes. Now, mailer codes are not essential to make the mailers work, but they are essential if you want that mailer price to win over, for example, the retail less the discount price that you may have as a setup on the side of the mailer being applied to the customer as well. So what happens is a mailer code in here is basically it can be the same as the standard code, but it can also be a prefixed code or a suffix code. In terms of, in here we could have PRI as in Prima, and then as a prefix 101756, and that might be the mailer code. And within Prima you've got a function that you can set against a particular customer to use this option called direct mailer pricing. So if I find a customer account again, I'll just show you where that is. Within the product units and pricing, I've got this option here called use direct mailer pricing. And what that means is, just coming back to when I said we had the different mailers at different prices and which one was going to pull through, use direct mailer pricing means if that's ticked, Prima will look to see what the mailer code is assigned to that particular item within the mailer, and if that mailer code is quoted and the mailer itself is in date and it's assigned to the customer, then it will use that price above using the price of a retail less discount, for example. So in the past it was basically used for the purposes of, if this customer quotes this particular special code relevant to your business, then they would get that price. I've certainly seen a lot of customers just copying the standard code into the mailer code and using that as the process, but they still want that mailer price to win because they've got that mailer assigned to the particular account. So where you saw in that mailer grid manager, if I just go back into here, find the items and search, what you're saying here, where you've got the option to update the mailer code to, what you're saying is you can use a prefix or a suffix. If you have this option ticked and you leave this box blank, it will basically copy the standard code in the mailer and make that the mailer code, so that can still work as well. If you wanted to add a prefix, what you can do is you can put a prefix on and apply. Okay, so when I come out of here and I minimize that for a sec and I go back to my mailer items, I've now got a prefix on my code. And like I say, the old or the traditional way of using these mailers through Prima was if they quoted PRI 101756, then they would get the mailer price if it was assigned to their account. But if they just quoted the standard code, then they'd be paying the list price, or list price less the discount. Okay, so that's I suppose applicable for you guys to, if you want to go down the route of having those prefix and suffix codes. One thing that's important to note is if you use Prima Go and on our e-commerce store, the customer can search by the mailer code online, but what would be returned online, the mailer code itself doesn't display. It's the code essentially in terms of the product that you've set to display online, which will show. So that's just something that comes up in terms of questions to the customer service team. Okay, so assigning the stuff to the customers is pretty straightforward. Setting the mailers up themselves is pretty straightforward. One of the, I suppose, the things just from a kind of wider picture point of view we see with the dealer groups especially is a lot of the guys are going down the route of giving the mailers their own codes, and it can cause in some cases conflict in terms of the data that you've actually got in your system versus the codes. So we tend to see sometimes the data coming straight from the suppliers such as Vow and Spices in terms of their mailers is more consistent with the catalogue data versus the dealer group catalogues, and it does cause a little bit of confusion. But we are trying to educate the customers, if you like, our customers, to where possible use the standard codes that you see in the catalogue, because that's essentially what your customers will be seeing online, and that's I suppose that's really it. In terms of management of the mailers, say once the expiry dates have passed, the mailers, they will sit against the customer's account, but the pricing won't be pulled through. So should you need to get rid of any mailers at the time, you might have some from previous campaigns that you've done, you can highlight them and you can delete them. So if you get the little frame around there, you get the option to delete it, and you can take that mailer out of the system, and then it's no longer used. Yeah. So pretty straightforward to manage. And like I say, if you can refer back to this video if you wanted to create your own, and then the ones that come in from the suppliers basically take care of themselves. So that's all I really wanted to go through with you today. And we'll, as normal, hang around for a few minutes and see if you guys have got any questions, but hopefully that's answered the questions on that we get regularly around what are the mailers and how do they apply to the customers and how's the pricing pulled through. So, okay, so we'll see you guys next week, and we'll have a topic out on the social media pretty soon, just to let you know what we're going to cover. Okay, thanks guys.